to Tony the Technician's channel, and today we're going to be going into an oil change on my 2012 Malibu LTZ. It is the 2.4 liter 4-cylinder Ecotech. You guys might have seen my previous video on changing the spark plugs. Also, I did an oil change on my wife's 2009 Kia Spectra, which I'll kind of go into the differences in the two main types of oil filters that manufacturers use, and kind of the differences and stuff like that. But to get started, obviously you'll need either a lift or jack and jack stands, which I already have the vehicle lifted up. So just make sure when doing that you use both jack stands, 2 of them, with the jack, just for safety. And then you might want some gloves, some iPro, and as far as the tools, it's just a simple ratchet. And if you're doing an oil change where you use a spin-on or canister style oil filter, you might need an oil filter wrench in order to get it off. Whereas on this style, or on my vehicle, it is a cartridge style oil filter, so you will not need a pair of oil filter pliers or a wrench. You just simply need a socket, and I'll get into that here in a little bit. But what I'll need is a 15 millimeter for the drain plug, my 3/8 ratchet and extension, and then the main thing that makes this job on a lot of these newer vehicles easier is a set of actual oil filter sockets. We'll get into why these are important here in a little bit. Other than that, all you'll need is your oil filter and your oil, a funnel, and maybe a couple rags. So let me get into really the main differences on these oil filters. These spin-on oil canisters have been in use for a very long time, and they actually used to use these cartridges back in the day, but we got away from them. But now manufacturers are getting back to these, not only because it costs less to make these. You might not think so as a purchaser, because when you go and purchase a filter like this, it's going to run roughly the same price as this, even though it takes a lot less material to make a filter like this. It's just a way of the manufacturer making a little bit more money and paying less to actually make these. So the real main difference is the rubber seal isn't on the filter anymore. You do have a little one up here. These styles vary, all depending on the manufacturer and the vehicle that you're putting it in, but they're all roughly the same. The thing that's nice about the cartridge filters is most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, these filters are accessible from on top of the vehicle. You don't have to get underneath or anything like that. The thing that makes that nice is, for one, let's say you think your engine has some wear and maybe there's some metal particles and stuff running through your engine oil and stuff like that. Well, in order to check it on a system that uses this, to check this filter, you have to drain the oil. Whereas on this Ecotech that I have, since it's accessible from the top, I don't have to drain the oil to check if there's any contaminants in my oil. I can simply remove it from the top of the engine, and basically you can check this. If you have ferrous metals, then you can use a magnet. Non-ferrous, it's kind of a different story because you can't really attract non-ferrous metals with a magnet. But it is a little bit easier because you don't have to drain the oil, and you can easily just check these filter plies and just check for contaminants in them. Where using a spin-on filter, it's a little bit different story. As far as performance-wise, there's really no performance difference in what filter you use. It still uses the same type of filter, just in a different body. So that's really the main differences in the filters. And then before doing your oil change, you want to check to see what the capacity of your oil is, how many quarts do you require, and what viscosity oil you need. And with any GM engine, you want to use Dexos approved oil. And I actually went out the other day and got everything for this oil change and the video and everything, and realized I bought the oil for my wife's car, 5W20. That's what her Kia requires. And I didn't even think about it. I was so used to purchasing that that's what I got. And then when I went to go do the oil change on this a little bit ago, I realized I bought the wrong oil. So I had to go back for my 5W30. If you don't know what the 5W20, 5W30, though, if you don't know what those numbers mean, let me know down below and I can kind of do a video on that. We're not going to get into full synthetic or a synthetic blend or anything like that, but I can go over what the numbers kind of are, or if you just want to leave a comment, maybe I can just describe it to you in the comments below. But basically, viscosity is just how thick the oil is at cool temperature and hot temperature. It gets a little bit more advanced than that, but it's really not all that difficult to understand. But other than that, that's really all you need. Now I'm going to go into why it's important to have these sockets if you're in the automotive field. If you're not, you can probably get by without them, but they don't run that much. This set of 7 sockets, I think ran me around $25 or $30. So it's really not that bad, and it can make your oil changes a lot easier. If you're just a do-it-yourselfer and you just have 1 or 2 vehicles, you could just go out and buy the 1 or 2 sockets that you may need for your specific vehicles instead of buying an entire set. But I will link all these products, like I stated in my previous videos. Any tools that I use in my videos, I am starting to link in the description so you can purchase them, and I hope you guys enjoy that. So let's get into why these sockets are kind of a lifesaver, or a time saver, I should say. So I hope you guys enjoy. If you do, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Thank you guys. Okay guys, so let's try this again. I recorded this like 2 times and a big old sandstorm popped up in front of the house and started throwing stuff, so redoing it. So basically what I was going over is the differences in between the cartridge style and the canister style or spin-on style oil filter. The locations for the spin-on or canister style are usually on the side or bottom of the engine, whereas the cartridge style is usually located on either the side or the top. Now, that is not 100% accurate for all manufacturers and vehicle models, but a majority of it, that is true. As you can tell on this 2.4 liter Ecotech, this is the oil filter location. I'm showing you all this before I get started on the oil change, just so you guys kind of know. But as you can see, the oil cartridge is located here on top. It's just kind of like a cup with a hex head on top, which is a 32 millimeter. And I don't actually have a 32 millimeter, but I do have this 1.25 inch socket I'm just going to use as an example. And the reason these are so handy is because when you're using a regular socket, you run into obstructions like this, where you can't actually get the socket on there because parts of the engine are obstructing you from actually getting on there. So the only real way to do it without that is either a 32 millimeter wrench, which you might still have a problem getting at because you don't have a lot of room here, and usually 32 millimeter wrenches are pretty large. So maybe a set of adjustable wrenches or something of that sort might help you get the job done. But the easiest way is to just purchase the socket you need. If you're a do-it-yourselfer or if you're a professional, I suggest getting a set of these, and I will link this set in the description. This is the 32 millimeter. As you can tell, it's quite shallow and is 3/8 drive. It's specifically designed for these types of cartridges. And as you can see, it slides on there, no obstructions, and I can use either a regular extension and get up here with a ratchet, or I can use a wobble extension even and get to it from way out here. It'll make the job a lot easier. So that's the main purpose of those sockets, and the main differences in the locations of the different types of oil filters. So now that I've kind of described all of that to you, we're going to go ahead and start this oil change. Okay guys, so the first step in a cartridge style is a majority of the time you actually want to change the cartridge first before actually draining the oil and everything like that. So we're going to go ahead and take our 32 millimeter with our extension and ratchet and just kind of break this loose. Simple as that. Kind of using a wobble extension so I don't have to really fight this. There you go. Get that all loose up. And then you just simply pull your filter out. Here you go. As you can tell, you can check the filter without even having to drain the oil. So what we're going to do now is we're actually just going to simply pull this filter out of this cap, which is pretty simple. And then you're going to take your new filter and you're going to clip it right in place. It's just these little tangs right here at the bottom that are going to hold it into this cap. Another thing that you want to make sure you do every single time you change the oil is this little rubber O-ring right here. Any filter that you buy should come with another O-ring, so you want to make sure to replace that. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to get it reinstalled and tightened down in the engine, and then we'll get to draining the oil. Okay guys, so here's the cap. I have the new O-ring on here, and a thing that's really going to help you get the old O-ring off is just a simple little hook or a pick to really get underneath of here, because it can be a pain to get off and you just kind of pull it right off. So just simply get the pick underneath there and pull it off and replace it with the new one. Once you have that, you just take your new filter and you push it in here and you can hear it click in. It should rotate freely, and it's as simple as that. So now we're going to go ahead and reinstall it. Be very careful not to cross thread this because it is just plastic. Definitely start it by hand, get it nice and snug, then just go ahead, take your socket and tighten it back down. Doesn't take much. You don't have to apply a lot of force. You'll feel it stop and then you just go like a quarter turn past that. So now that we have that replaced, we can simply get underneath the vehicle with our 15mm and drain the oil. Alrighty guys, so we're underneath the vehicle now, and this is your drain plug right here. It is a 15mm. Make sure to have the vehicle on both jack stands nice and secure, and make sure they are not interfering with where you need to place your drain pan. And then you just simply move the drain pan out of the way. Make sure this is sits off. Loosen that up, and then you're ready to drain your oil. There you go. Then I'm going to just let this drain for now. I'm going to make sure to clean up anything on this drain bolt. Check the washer if you need to replace it. Make sure that the threads aren't messed up or anything like that. And then we'll simply replace it and put the new oil in. Okay guys, so just cleaned up this drain plug bolt. And depending on the vehicle that you're working on, you may have a few different styles. Some of them have like a plastic washer or a grommet on the end of here, which usually needs to be replaced if it's damaged or worn out, because that will create a leak from your drain pan. The thing that's nice about this Ecotech is it's got this built-in rubber grommet in the head of the bolt. So you just need to make sure that it's in good shape and not damaged at all, and you can just simply reuse this. The rubber grommet in here is simply reusable and seals up the pan. So that's a nice little feature. Got that cleaned up, everything looks good. So now we're going to go ahead and reinstall it and get to installing the new oil. Alrighty guys, about to finish up now. It's just simply going to be removing this. You can also check your cap. If your cap doesn't have it, your owner's manual will, or you can find it online of what type of oil your vehicle takes. It says Dexos SAE 5W30. So that is what I have here. One thing to be aware of as well is the amount of oil. This does take 5 quarts and 5 quarts even. Something you need to be aware of as well. Most canister style engines will have a little awkward of a number. If you look up the actual specs, it'll be like 5.2 quarts or 4.8 quarts or something along those lines, because that oil filter is going to hold a little bit of oil itself, whereas these cartridge ones are a little bit different, but it's not like that on every vehicle. Just make sure to check your manufacturer's specifications to double check your capacity and your weight for your oil. So we're going to go ahead and take our funnel, simply place it in here. One thing you want to make sure is to always clean your funnel, because the last thing you want to do is have old coolant or some other fluid mixing with your oil, or a different type of oil that doesn't go in your vehicle. You don't want to mix any of those, so you always want to make sure you have a nice clean funnel. And simply just start adding your oil, and then when you're done, you can check the oil and then run the car for a few minutes, let it warm up, and double check your oil level again, just to make sure you're still at the proper oil level. So usually I change my oil every 3,000 miles, even though it's not required. This time I actually did go about 5,000 miles just to see what the oil would look like, and it really didn't look all that much different. It didn't seem any more contaminated or anything. So I'm still going to continue to do them at 3,000 miles, but yeah. So just continue adding your oil. This is a 5-quart jug, so it's going to take all of it. But I do like to stop about a half a quart or so before and just check the oil level. It's not necessary, but if you don't know your oil level, you definitely want to keep checking it as you're pouring it. But I'm going to go ahead and finish topping this off, and then I'm going to do a little warm up and check it again, and that'll be it. Guys, so that's about it as far as doing an oil change on a vehicle that has a cartridge style oil filter. I actually really enjoy these cartridge style oil filters. They're usually pretty easy to do on vehicles. Don't get me wrong, some of them can be a pain, but as far as this 2.4 liter Ecotech, it is really easy to do an oil change on. And I like the fact that I don't have to get under the vehicle just to check the oil filter. So I'm not saying that all oil cartridge vehicles are easier to do than the spin-on canister style, just stating that this one is pretty damn easy, and I do enjoy this. But one thing you do want to remember is to reinstall your oil cap on your engine before you go driving the vehicle. Another thing you want to do before returning it to the customer or driving it yourself is start the car and immediately look underneath the vehicle, make sure that there is no oil draining from the oil drain plug, as well as where your oil filter goes, whether that be canister style or cartridge style. It's always good to check both of those locations depending on which one your vehicle uses, because you could have cross-threaded the bolt or the filter, causing a leak, or you could have double stacked the O-rings on a canister style oil filter, which would cause a leak. If you start the vehicle and you take a look and you see an oil leak, you want to immediately shut off the vehicle and start inspecting what the cause of this leak is. Get that problem fixed before driving the vehicle again. But hopefully you don't have that problem. Another thing to get in the habit of when doing an oil change is to inspect a lot of the other simple things in the vehicle, such as the air filter, cabin filter, your fluids such as coolant, brake fluid, power steering fluid, things like that. It's always good to check those, top them off if needed, or inspect other things just in case other things are worn out and need to be replaced. You want to check your belts, as well as a tire rotation is preferred every oil change or every other oil change, roughly every 5,000 miles. So it could be different for your vehicle. If you own a really new vehicle, because the oil changes are a lot less often now. But a tire rotation is good every 5,000 miles. I would do one on mine, but I literally just got the tires put on yesterday, so don't really need to do that. Another thing you want to do if you have a vehicle like this 2012 Malibu, or a lot of the newer vehicles, you're going to have an oil life monitoring system, which you're going to want to reset, and it varies for every vehicle. There's a different process for each one, and you might also have an oil light that needs to be shut off. What you need to do is look up online what the procedure is specifically for your vehicle, and it might be as easy as getting on the steering wheel and going to the oil life monitoring section and just resetting it, or you could have a pretty lengthy process, and you might even need a scanner, so you might need to take it in. But either way, just make sure to look that up online so you can get that all reset and you're good to go. That's basically all the tips and tricks I have for you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Thank you guys.